Yeah, in fact, it's a great pleasure having you again yet another Rajkumar sir from Bangalore. So I want everybody to give him a big round of applause to welcome him for this call. So he joined the Indian Air Force on 10th November 1962. He started his journey with Tufanis and went on to fly Meteor, then Sabres, and he also participated in 1965 war, wherein he flew 22 operational missions. For his contributions in 65 war, he was awarded mention in dispatches, and thereafter he got converted into MiG-21s. So then during 1971, he could not participate in the 71 war as he was sent to France for test pilot course. So thereafter he was a test pilot for almost 20 years now, and he finally retired from our Indian Air Force in 2001 after glorious almost serving for Indian for more than four decades. Now, sir, Air Marshal Philip Rajkumar sir, you are welcome to our webinar on 71 war heroes or great war heroes of our Indian Air Force. So you may now take us through your journey, sir, into this webinar.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Nice to be invited to this webinar. I was basically a Kannadiga born in the state of Karnataka in 1941. My father was a doctor in the state government medical service, and I did all my schooling and college in Bangalore. I graduated with a BSc degree in 1961, and I joined the Indian Air Force 82nd Pilots Course and was commissioned on the 10th of November 1962. We flew the HT2, the Harvard, and the Vampire at Hakimpat in Hyderabad, and we were commissioned in the middle of the Chinese conflict. Thereafter, I was posted to number 47 Squadron in Kalaikunda, which was flying the Tufani, and we had barely flown a few hours, about 15 hours, when the squadron was moved hurriedly overnight to Bagdogra, because if you remember, it was only a few months after the Chinese incursion, and some troop buildup was noticed in the Chumbi Valley, which was between Sikkim and Bhutan, and therefore two Tufani squadrons were hurriedly moved to Bagdogra and Hasimara. This was in August of 1963. Now, after I completed 200 jet hours and a white instrument rating, the United States government offered to train 80 Indian Air Force pilots in gunnery on the Saberjet, F-86 Saberjet. So we were divided into 10 batches of 8. And in 1964 April, I went to the US. I was there for 5 months. And I flew the T-33 trainer and the F-86 Sabre. The gunnery course was extremely well conducted, and all of us gained a lot from that training. I returned to India.
What do you do in the, sir, sorry to interrupt you, what do you do in the gunnery course, sir? What exactly?
Gunnery course, first we are taught, first you have to convert onto the aircraft. So you do a quick conversion onto the Sabre. So there is a short MCF, you learn about the aircraft. Then you undergo the theory of gunnery, air-to-ground gunnery, air-to-ground rocketry, air-to-ground bombing, and air-to-air firing. So you undergo all the theory classes, and then you go and carry out the actual exercises in the air. And yes, so the entire, the crux of the training was actual gunnery, firing rockets, bombs, and guns. We were based at Las Vegas and did all this training there, and we came back to India. And I was posted to number 1 Squadron, Adhampur, flying the Meteor 4A, which was a ground attack aircraft. Just as I became fully operational on the Meteor 4A, the September 65 war started with Pakistan. And my very first operational sortie was as part of a daylight raid on the heavily defended Pakistan Air Force base Sargodha, and 4 Meteors went. We destroyed some aircraft on the ground, and some buildings, and all four of us returned safely. That was the most successful counter-air mission of the 65 war. Thereafter, the war continued. We did close support missions in the Lahore and Sialkot sectors. And war finished on the 22nd of September, and I had flown 22 missions by that time. The following year, in the middle of 1966, one squadron converted on to the Type 77, MiG-21. Now, one interesting thing is during the 65 war, the Pakistani B-57 bombers carried out a lot of night bombing missions over our airfields in Punjab, mainly Pathankot, Adhampur, Halwara, Jodhpur, Jamnagar. And after some days, they even hit Ambala. So we had absolutely no night air defense capability because none of our aircraft had airborne interception radars. So when the MiG-21 came, our biggest job was to establish night air defense capability. So we did a lot of night flying. Then we worked with the radar units at Amritsar and Barnala. And over a period of time, we acquired quite a lot of competence in night interceptions. With the result, during the 71 war, the number of Pakistani B-57 raids reduced considerably because they knew they would get intercepted. And the lesson from this is that whatever the other side has, we have to develop a counter to that in peacetime so that we are ready for the next conflict. So I remained in one squadron flying the MiG-21 till January of 1971 when a new unit called the Tactics and Combat Development Establishment was formed, which later on became, it is TACD, it's called TACD now, it's based in Gwalior. And we were just setting up the unit, and from Adhampur, the unit was moved to Ambala, but I was sent off to Delhi to undergo a French language course because my name had come for the French test pilots course. And after undergoing French language training for 3 months, I went back to the squadron in Ambala, by which time the squadron had been given the task for operations, which was expected to commence any time because of the problem in East Pakistan. So our task was to carry out single aircraft night bombing raids over Pakistani airfields, and we practiced a lot of low-level navigation at 300 feet at night using only the compass and the stopwatch. We were supposed to take off from Amritsar and fly for between 22 and 25 minutes at low level and hit airfields like Chaklala, Sargoda, Shorkot Road, and so on. And we were supposed to carry 2 bombs, go there and drop it on the airfield. The main idea was to carry out harassment of the enemy defenses throughout the night. So while I was practicing for this quite difficult mission, the signal came for me to proceed to France on the 8th of October, and I went away. And I had to undergo this extremely challenging technical course, all in the French language. I could not fly solo till I was able to do all the radio transmissions in French. And then we had 400 hours of ground lectures and about 120 hours of flying. So it was a very, very tightly packed, difficult period. And I successfully completed this course, and I came back to India in July of 1972. And I was posted to the then Aircraft and Armament Testing Unit at Kanpur, A&ATU, which a month later became the Aircraft and Systems Testing Establishment, ASTE. And we remained there for almost 9 months till the June of next year, during which time we did a very important trial. That was after the Type 77, we got another version of the MiG called the Type 96, the MiG-21M. And the MiG-21M came to India fitted with an engine called the R13, whereas the R11 engine, which was in the Type 77, they had started manufacturing it in Koraput, in HAL Koraput. So a choice had to be made which engine to fit into this MiG-21M, which was going to be made by HAL at Nasik. So we had to do a comparative evaluation of the two engines. So squadron leader Krishna Swami and myself. Now Krishna Swami later on became the chief of the air staff. So we carried out this evaluation, and on techno-economic grounds, the government chose the R11 engine. So that was a very interesting trial which we did. And then in June of 1973, ASTE was asked to move permanently to Bangalore. And that was because Air Chief Marshal O.P. Mehra, he was chairman HAL when he was made the chief of the air staff. But for 3 months, he wore two hats. He was chairman HAL as well as chief of the air staff. So during that time, he quickly moved ASTE to Bangalore and gave us land and for both technical and domestic accommodation for airmen and officers. So that was a very fortunate occurrence because otherwise moving a unit, getting land from HAL and all would have been very difficult. But it happened very smoothly because Air Chief Marshal O.P. Mehra was head of the Air Force and head of HAL. So I continued doing various service trials at ASTE till 1976 when I went off to Staff College in Wellington, Tamil Nadu.
Here, sir, what is the main function of ASTE, sir? Then what do you do as, what did you do as a test pilot, sir?
In ASTE, the main job, there are two functions. One is to carry out service trials of equipment which needs to be inducted into the Air Force. All equipment which flies in the Air Force has to pass through the hands of ASTE. Communication equipment, sensors, navigation equipment, and mainly weapons. All the weapons, new weapons that are inducted, missiles, bombs, rockets, they all have to be tested and cleared by ASTE before getting into service. And not everything that we test at ASTE gets into the service. Quite a lot of equipment is tested and rejected. The other function at ASTE is training of test pilots, training of flight test crew. So a test pilot school was started at Bangalore in 1973, and it has now become a recognized institution in the world. We train both test pilots and flight test engineers. And recently, I'm very happy to tell you that the first woman flight test engineer graduated this year in May, and she is now working at ASTE. So I hope to see women test pilots also in the future.
What is the main function of the test pilot, sir?
Test pilot is there is a set of requirements which is laid out by the user, the Air Ops Directorate in Air Headquarters, and our main job is to fly the aircraft or use the equipment and see whether all these requirements set out by Air Headquarters are met. And then we submit a report. Everything is written down in the form of a report and sent to Air Headquarters. And there they take a decision based on the report of ASTE whether the equipment is worth being inducted into the Air Force.
So like a kind of quality control, sir?
Yes, we work closely with an organization called the Center for Military Airworthiness and Certification, seminal. It is a government agency. In the old days, it used to be called DTD and PR, Directorate of Technical Production Air. So, CEMILAC, we work very closely with HAL, CEMILAC, and the Air Force. The other thing is, whenever a new aircraft is being made by HAL, like the Kiran, the HPT-32, we do part of the prototype testing of the aircraft along with HAL. And that is the main job of a test pilot is actually prototype testing. When a new design has to be put through its paces, that is the main job. The service trials are what the service requires, but that is not prototype testing. It is called systems testing. That is why the name aircraft systems testing established.
Right, sir.
Then in 1977, after staff college, I was sent off to 3 Squadron in Pathankot for my flight commander's tenure. I was flying Type 77s. While I was flight commander in 3 Squadron at Pathankot, I was sent to do the fighter combat leader course at Jamnagar with TAC-D. So I went there and I completed that course. FCL, it was called the FCL course.
Okay.
So, and then as I finished my flight command's tenure, I was promoted to the rank of wing commander, and I took over command of 108 Squadron, equipped with the Type 96 aircraft, which was at Adhampur, my old base at Adhampur.
Right,
Now,
sir.
while I was at Adhampur as CEO of the squadron, I was sent to Russia, the old Soviet Union, as member of a team led by Air Chief Air Marshal Katre at that time to fly and evaluate the MiG-23 BN, which was subsequently inducted into the Air Force.
Okay.
So that was an interesting experience. And
Sure.
when I completed my squadron commander's tenure I was there only for a year and 4 months because ASTE had no test pilots and I was pulled back. I came back to ASTE, I
Okay.
spent a year and a half, and thereafter I went to Iraq as an instructor for 2 years.
Okay. Sir.
And funny thing was in Iraq, we had Pakistani pilots in the same squadron. We flew together in the
Okay.
same squadron, in the
Okay.
same formation, and we were great friends. We
Yeah,
had
yeah, yeah. Okay, sir. Here, what are their competency levels, sir? Their pilots and the pilots of Pakistan and Iraq, comparing with our Indian pilots.
they're absolutely same class. They're
Good.
as good as this, and
Nice, sir.
they also had the benefit of training by the Western Air Forces in the early years, in the 1950s, 60s. America had given them a lot of aid, so they were very good. Even in during the saber training in America, in the squadron, we trained together with pilots from many countries: Iran, Pakistan, some Latin American countries like Brazil and Argentina and all that. So
What type of aircraft in Iraq?
the MiG-21 main job was to
MiG-21.
convert
Okay.
one to MiG-21.
Right, sir.
Now to go back a little bit, when I was at the French test pilots course, I flew 16 types of aircraft, including the Mirage 3 and
16.
Mirage 3, which was a very famous French fighter. After the Mystère,
Okay.
Super Mystère, then the Mirage 3 came. And
Right, sir.
in Iraq, we trained these Iraqi cadets and made them, converted them onto the MiG-21 and gave them basic operational training. And we were based
Okay.
at a place called Tikrit, which is north of Baghdad. And we even had a visit by President Saddam Hussein to our squadron. And he came
Okay.
around and met all the instructors. And he gave us two watches, one for the instructor and one for his wife.
Okay.
He also gave us a cash present of 1,000 dinars. Now, 1,000 dinars was something like 30,000 rupees in 1981.
Good.
But we had to report it to our air attaché in Baghdad,
Sir.
and he informed air headquarters, and air headquarters asked us to deposit this money with the Air Force non-public funds. So we couldn't keep the money;
Okay.
we had to give it back to the Air Force. That was an interesting visit by Saddam Hussein. Then
How many were there from India, sir? How many were there from India?
doing this FCL training, we were only eight on MiGs and another 8 on Sukhoi 7s, but they were at a different base.
Okay.
But a lot of
Nice.
Indian QFIs, flying instructors were there in Tikrit, about 40 of them. And
Okay.
the entire training academy was being run, the flying was being run mainly by the Indian instructors, with a few Pakistani and Bangladeshi instructors, and a few engineers from Czechoslovakia to maintain the aircraft. It was a Czech aircraft they were using. But Iraq was a very, very nice experience because it was extremely safe. People in uniform got a lot of respect. And I came back after two years, and I was posted back to ASTE. This time
How long were you there in Iraq, sir?
Exactly 2 years. Exactly 2 years. 81 October
2
to
years.
83
Oh, great.
October. And then I
Okay.
came back in
Good.
1984. I was promoted to group captain, and I became the chief test pilot at ASTE. And my main job
Okay.
was to test the new navigation and attack system in the Jaguar aircraft. You know, in 1980, the
Okay.
Jaguars were purchased from the UK, and they came with a first
Sir.
generation inertial navigation and attack system, which we replaced with an system which we developed. We bought out components from various companies and we integrated it, and it was called the Darren system, Darren 1. And
Okay.
this system had to be cleared, and over a period of 4 years, by about 1988, we were able to give full operational clearance for the new system, and it went into service. After I finished my 4 years as group captain, I was promoted to Air Commodore and I went as Air Officer commanding Gorakhpur. Gorakhpur had two Jaguar squadrons, both fitted with the Darren system, and a new Israeli self-protection jammer electronic warfare system was also inducted at that time. And I had done the early trials of that equipment at ASTE, so Air Headquarters posted me to the base where this equipment was getting into service. So I was in Gorakhpur for again not a full tenure, a year and 4 months, and I was sent off to London to do a year-long course at the Royal College of Defence Studies, which is equivalent to our National Defence College course in Delhi.
Sir.
Now, this course in London was very interesting because we were 80 students, 40 Britishers and 40 students from 28 nations, including again from Pakistan. Okay. And two officers, Pakistani officers were with me, were Brigadier Pervez Musharraf, who became president of Pakistan. President of Pakistan, and Air Commodore Aliuddin. So again, we were.
Now, how was he, sir? How was Musharraf during that training period?
Oh, Musharraf was very friendly, and he was a very good golf player. I have played golf with him.
Okay.
And I'll tell you a little more about Musharraf slightly later.
Okay.
So that was a very interesting course. When I came back after doing the course, I was posted to ASTE as commandant.
Again, okay.
I was still an Air Commodore. I became commandant ASTE. Then I commanded ASTE for 2 years and 2 months, and I was one of the first Indian Air Force officers to go to Israel. We had just started diplomatic relations with Israel in 1992, and in May of 1993, I went there to evaluate the radar. When I finished my command tenure at ASTE, I was posted as Director Air Staff Requirements at Vayu Bhavan. And during this time, I had two main interesting jobs at Vayu Bhavan. One was the MiG-21 BIS upgrade program. Because the light combat aircraft program was delayed, the Air Force had to extend the life of the MiG-21s. So the Mikoyan Design Bureau in Moscow had given a proposal to upgrade the capabilities of the MiG-21 BIS. And there was also a similar proposal from Israel Aircraft Industries. So, which was why I was sent to Israel to take a look at that proposal.
Okay.
And then I came back and I rejected, Air Headquarters rejected the Israeli proposal. And I went to Moscow and conducted the first 2 rounds of technical discussions with the Mikoyan Design Bureau.
Okay.
And we decided to go for the Mikoyan offer. And I froze the technical specifications of the upgrade, and later on, by about the year 2000, the upgraded aircraft started getting into service, and 3 squadrons of upgraded MiG-BIS are still flying. Then the other big problem I had was the light combat aircraft program was going on, had been started at the Aeronautical Development Agency. And the project definition had been done with the help of Dassault Aviation of France. But Air Headquarters said that what is indicated in the report, the cost and time to develop the 4 new technologies in the aircraft, which was fly-by-wire, glass cockpit, composite material in the airframe, and computer monitoring of utility systems. These 4 new technologies, we said, we cannot be done in the time frame indicated in this report. And also to build confidence, we recommend a technology demonstration program of between 200 to 220 flights before we give the go-ahead for full-scale engineering development of the light combat aircraft. So accordingly, this program, the flight testing of this aircraft had to be done, and our Honorable President APJ Abdul Kalam, he was
Sir.
the scientific advisor to the Ministry of Defense at that time, and he asked for my services to go to Bangalore and carry out the flight testing of the technology demonstration program. So in 1994, I came on deputation to the Aeronautical Development Agency. I was an Air Vice Marshal at that time, and I came here, and after we did a lot of work developing the control laws for the fly-by-wire system. We first did it in the simulator on the ground. Then we took it to in-flight simulation aircraft at a company called HAL in New York State. So we went there and we did all this work in the air to look at the control laws. And I came back in 1996, July. I did 3 trips to the US for between 4 and 6 weeks each time. And when I came back in September 96, I was promoted to the rank of Air Marshal. We now carried on with the development work, but suddenly in May of 1998, Pokhran nuclear explosion took place, 11th of May 1998. And the United States withdrew all support to the program. Now, we were using a General Electric engine. Lockheed Martin was helping us to develop the fly-by-wire system. British Aerospace was helping us with various other things. Some equipment we were buying from Germany, all that stopped. We were left high and dry. But we had an extremely dynamic program director in ADA called Dr. Kota Harinarayana, who, with a lot of enthusiasm and determination, said we will go ahead and do whatever we can. So we were confident enough to carry out the first flight on the 4th of July 2001, in spite of the sanctions having been in place for 31 months before the first flight. It was a combined effort under the leadership of Kota Harinarayana for the design and development, and myself for the flight testing aspect of it. I set up the National Flight Test Center. I put state-of-the-art telemetry, and I introduced the methodology of testing, which is in vogue even today. So when I retired from the Air Force in August of 2001, I was appointed director of the Aeronautical Development Agency for 2 more years. And by the time I retired in 2003, we had completed 98 flights of the technology demonstration program.
Oh, great.
And the program was completed on 31st March 2004 with 202 flights, and confidence was expressed that we now know how to do these technologies. We can go ahead with the full-scale engineering development. And the aircraft subsequently entered service in 2016. And the National Flight Test Center, which I set up, after me, there were several other project directors who were there, fine-tuned the system, and the net result was that we completed 5,000 developmental flights of prototype testing with 4 new technologies without a single incident or accident.
Oh, that's great, sir.
It is a record for India and maybe a record in the world.
Oh, great.
So that was the outstanding achievement of the Tejas program. Then I said I'll come back to Parvez Musharraf because he became first chief of the army staff, and then
President of Pakistan.
He became the president of Pakistan. So every year, every 5 years, the Royal College batch of 80, we have a reunion, and somebody.
Where, sir? There only in the college.
Yeah, in different locations. Different locations. We had the first one in London, and then the second one. Somebody suggested one of our batchmates is president of a country. Let us ask him. So Parvez said, "Please come," and we all went. I flew with my wife from Bangalore to Islamabad, and I stayed as a state guest in Pakistan for 1 week, for almost 8 days. And Parvez was both the chief of army staff as well as he was holding the president's chair. So he was staying in the chief of army staff house in Rawalpindi, and he put up all these 15 officers and wives in the President's Palace in Islamabad.
Oh, that's great. That's
Constitution
great.
Avenue.
Okay.
And then we flew to a place called Murree, which is a hill station. And then from there we went to the Pakistan Military Academy in Abbottabad. And
Okay.
we actually drove past on the way to enter the Pakistan Military Academy. There's a long road, and we drove on that road to enter the gates of the academy. But on that road was the house in which Osama bin Laden was staying. So,
Oh, at that time, sir. At that time.
this was in July of 2005, and Osama had moved there in May of 2005. So, I've actually driven past the house where he was living.
Okay. Okay.
But
So,
of course, nobody knew at that time. And from Islamabad, from the Abbottabad, the military academy, we were taken to Takshashila to see the Buddhist museum. You know, Takshashila was a very big Buddhist center of learning. And so that was a very interesting visit to Takshashila. And we also flew from Islamabad to a place called Chitral. Chitral is right up in the hills at the foot of the Hindu Kush mountains.
okay.
And then from there we were flown in Pakistani Air Force helicopters to a place called Shandur, which is at 12,000 feet, where a polo match is played every year between teams from Gilgit and Chitral. So we saw that polo match. It's a great tourist attraction. And then from there we were taken to a remote valley where there are people called the Kalash tribe living there. Now the Kalash tribe people, they are very fair, they have blonde hair, and they are supposed to be remnants of Alexander the Great's army. They are supposed to have Greek origin.
Okay.
So a lot of DNA testing is going on now to find out where these people have come from. So they live in these three remote valleys right up near the foot of the Hindu Kush mountains, and they have their own customs, their own way of life. So that was again a very interesting thing. Then we went to Peshawar. Peshawar, we stayed in the officers' mess of the 11 Corps, Pakistan Army 11 Corps mess. And then the next morning we were flown to a place called Landi Kotal, which is on the Afghan border, and we were driven to the Khyber Pass. Now, the Khyber Pass, the average height of the Khyber Pass is only 3,600 feet. Bangalore is 3,000 feet. But it is a long, winding road which goes through the pass. And the Khyber Pass road is 36 kilometers long. And it ends at the Afghan border, which is called Torkham. Torkham is the place where Pakistan ends and Afghanistan begins. And I was standing there and looking at that Torkham border. And I said, my God, this is the way in which Mawad of Ghazni and Timur the Lame and Babur and all the invasions to India came through this pass. It was a great feeling of history, seeing that.
Okay.
Then we went to the Khyber Rifles Regiment.
What is the name of the pass, sir? Can you repeat? Name of the pass.
Khyber Pass.
Okay.
Pass. And then we went to a army unit called the Khyber Rifles. Khyber Rifles have been guarding the Khyber Pass since 1870. And I'll show you two mementos which I have of Khyber, of the Pakistan Military Academy and the Khyber Pass. I'll just show it to you.
Okay.
So it was a extraordinary experience to go and visit Pakistan and meet officers from the Pakistan Armed Forces, all retired like me. But it was a great experience, and it is something which Indian service officer cannot easily experience.
And how did they receive you, sir?
Extremely well, extremely well. They are extremely hospitable people. We were looked after very well. We didn't even have to spend one paisa for anything except whatever we bought. And my wife had a very interesting experience. She went with some European ladies. They were taken to a carpet shop.
Sir.
And so the shopkeeper was attending only to the white ladies. And
Acha, okay.
And then he
Okay.
said before they left, he said he presented Pashmina shawls to all of them. So my
Okay.
wife, there was another Indian officer's wife there, General Malik's wife was also there.
Oh.
So the two